The power of you know what compels me to tell you my thoughts on The Exorcist Believer. And yeah, let's go. What's going on, guys? We're going to talk about The Exorcist Believer, my thoughts, and yeah, we're going to get deep into this thing. But there will be no spoilers for the film. So, for you guys that have not seen it yet, you can definitely watch this review or listen to it and come away with your own idea on what the film is for you. But before I get into my review on The Exorcist Believer, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps us support the channel. I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it. And as we head into Halloween season, we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. So let's get into this. Exorcist Believer is directed by David Gordon Green. And as we all know, David Gordon Green was the person who helmed the Halloween trilogy with Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. A lot of controversy in that trilogy, especially with Halloween Kills and, of course, with Halloween Ends. And a lot of people were really nervous about him directing this new Exorcist trilogy that is planned by Blumhouse. This film had a $30 million budget, and they've already got some of the workings for the sequel called The Exorcist Deceiver already laid out. This film stars Leslie Odom, and he is the lead actor in the film, playing Victor. He is the father of Angela, played by Lydia Jewett. And we also have another family with Jennifer Nettles and also Norman Leo Butts. And they are the parents of the other young lady in the film that is possessed. Her name is Catherine, played by Olivia Markham. Now, this film is really interesting because instead of having one person possessed, we actually have two people possessed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break this down in just a few different categories. Let's start with the not so good of the film. Now, for a lot of people, they are going into this film with a sense of, why make another Exorcist film? It's not going to be any good. It's not going to be anywhere near the original. It's not going to be better than the original. And you are right about the last thing. It's not a film that is better than the original. But let me explain my opinion on that. For me, I grew up loving the original film directed by the late great William Friedkin, and it's still one of my favorite films of all time, and I think it's one of the greatest horror films of all time. And there are many people that share that sentiment, but most of those people that share that opinion skew older, right? People that are, let's say, 30 years old and older, people that were there when the film premiered, people that grew up in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s. Those folks in that audience have a strong connection to The Exorcist. But you also have another group of horror fans that are younger, let's say those that are under 30 years of age, and when they watch The Exorcist from 1974, their feeling is, yeah, it might be a good film, but it's not scary. I don't see what all the buzz is about. So I just want to put that out there for people when they think about movies. And I know it helps me when I talk about movies and think about why some people like certain movies versus another. Or if you like a film that was made, let's say in the 70s or the 80s, and then you have a sequel that comes out 20, 30 years later, and why the sequel is loved by certain groups of the fandom. So this film is not better than The Exorcist. It is not. And I think that going into it, you just have to understand that, okay? The other thing that I want to bring up is that this film did not break any new ground in the possession or exorcism subgenre. It didn't break any new ground the way that I wanted it to, the way that I was hoping. And again, my mindset is, I've watched a lot of exorcism films since I was a little kid, growing up in the 80s. You can't even imagine how many I've watched. And there's only a handful, in my opinion, that really stand out, that are good. A couple of them are great. And definitely in the Exorcist franchise itself, there's only two, in my opinion, that are really great films, and that's the original and Exorcist 3. So this film, unfortunately, did not break new ground. It was interesting seeing a double possession, so that had some fresh takes. There were some scenes that were actually fairly effective with that, but I don't think they went into it as much as they could have. And again, hindsight is 2020, but I do think that there was a couple of more things that they could have done with this whole idea of two girls being possessed by the same demon and so forth. So that was a little disappointing in that sense. The third thing that I think is not so good is the fact that it didn't have enough of a shock value. There were some moments, but overall, I think that it really didn't have anything that was too shocking. A couple of moments, a couple of scenes, a little bit of the dialogue, but not to the level that I think would satisfy old school fans as well as new school fans. And that's a tricky balance to make for any of these legacy sequels. And it doesn't matter what franchise and it doesn't matter what genre. You always have to satisfy really two different audiences, not just one. And I think that they missed the boat on making it shocking enough so that it could satisfy the new audiences, but yet not get to the point where it's a circus. Okay, that's the other thing that I think was too bad about the film. So let's get into the good. For me, I think that one thing I was really worried about with this film was where David Gordon Green was going to have his personal take with the Exorcist franchise. And again, this is a sequel to the original. And I was thinking to myself, I hope that this doesn't turn into something that's like a Halloween film disguised, as an Exorcist sequel. And I will say that I was very impressed the fact that this wasn't a Halloween film. This was an Exorcist film. This film had a lot of bridges to the original. You could definitely see the inspiration, but you could see it was not him copying what William Friedkin did. And that was a breath of fresh air. This film truly did feel like you could watch The Exorcist from 1974 and then you watch this movie, which of course takes place 50 years later. And there was the through lines there. The film was shot very well. I think the cinematography was very good. And the story itself, you had a sense of character arcs, okay? And without getting into spoilers, we all know from the trailer, we have this single father with this daughter, and then we have these two parents with a daughter, and they have to come together and deal with their young ones being possessed. So the way that the movie starts, it gives you a little bit of backdrop to a character and why their life is the way it is. And you start to realize that the film is doing a lot of the similar things that the original was so good at, and that is building the story, and giving you more than just, okay, it's an exorcism film, someone's possessed, they're gonna turn their head all around, make weird noises, do a lot of cursing, and then we're gonna solve it and save them. So this film was a slower paced film. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of modern audiences are not going to appreciate that. I truly do. And David Gordon Green had talked a lot about it, being that was the challenge that this film is going to give to audiences, is to really sink into these characters and the story and kind of go on the ride. Me personally, I think it was a good thing for the film because there wasn't this Halloween-esque type of feel to it, where there's a bunch of jump scares and there's gore, and it's all to mask the fact that the story isn't there. Okay, so that was a really good thing. The second good thing is the actors. I just want to say, me personally, I think that Leslie Odom was very, very good as the father, Victor. There was a lot of great dialogue, a lot of great scenes with him and with Angela, but also with him and the other parents and with Ann Dowd. Ann Dowd's character is really, really good in this movie, in my opinion. And I think Ann Dowd is really a really good character actress anyways. She's very, very commanding of the screen, and she stands out in a good way. And I think that the young ladies, playing Catherine and Angela, I thought that they were very good too. The thing that really intrigued me the most is in the beginning of the film when you meet the two girls. They're just regular girls, going through their day, their school day, their friends, and so you do get a sense of their relationship, and you get a little bit invested into them, and that's what you need. You really do need that, and I thought that was really good. So to me, having these actors that could portray these story beats and these arcs, that was necessary. And I talked about that, a while back, as far as the things that I'm concerned about for the film before seeing it and the things that I want. So I think that the actors did a really, really good job. The next thing I thought that was really good is the fact that the movie, it did try to do some different things that were interesting, and kind of opening up the world of the Exorcist, so to speak. And I think that it was refreshing to see that. I do wish that there was more of it. So there's, it's not perfect by any means, but I do appreciate them trying to kind of inject a modern flavor into the film while it still felt kind of old school. So this film, it's to be quite honest, it landed the way that I thought it would for me. This film did not suck. And I've heard some folks already with their reviews saying, well, it was crappy, or it was bad, or it sucked. And to me, if you have a movie where you have characters that you can follow and you have good acting, in some cases some really good acting, and the film is put together in a way where it's definitely got some great stuff, whether it's the cinematography or the music, the lighting, and those types of things, the setting. I think that right there, it doesn't suck. Now, your expectations of the film and what you wanted out of the film might paint that picture that says that it was bad, but that's kind of course, that's subjective, and we all have our opinions. But I've heard some people say, well, it didn't give me enough gore. It wasn't, the demon didn't scare me enough, and this and that. And guys, you got to remember, and especially if you're going to compare it to the original definitely spent at least 75% of the movie, maybe even more, just building the story, building the characters, Father Karras, Father Merrin, Chris McNeil, and seeing Reagan going through this possession. But at the time, Chris didn't know what it was. She's taking her to doctors, she's taking her to the hospital, taking her to people to check her mental state and so forth. And you didn't even get to the exorcism and the big stuff until the third act, the last 25 minutes or so. So people forget that. And even with that being said, yes, there were some standout moments, some really creepy moments. I think it's very effective, and it's got great atmosphere. And I think that this new film tried to walk that particular path rather than go into trying to just jump scare you, a lot of shock value in your face. And also, even with the dialogue, I know some people wanted some more creepy dialogue from the demon and so forth. And there was creepy dialogue. Was it over the top? No. And I think that was a choice made so that it wasn't just becoming a circus. We've seen exorcism movies, possession movies, where, it goes on and on about, F this, F you, all of that type of stuff. So we've seen that before. I think this movie was really trying to get underneath your skin with the creep value, which is what the original did so well. Plus, it was shocking because of the time period that it came out in. You watch The Exorcist today, you have a younger person under the age of 25 watch The Exorcist today, and they'll call it boring. They'll say, what's so shocking about it? There's nothing scary about it. Again, different time, different standards, different ages, different lens. So anyways, guys, I think this film was decent. It wasn't great, but I definitely would say it's not bad. I've seen some bad movies where you can't even see what's going on in the movie because the lighting is bad or the camera work is bad or it's shaky cam. The story doesn't make sense. In this movie, you had two parents or two sets of parents that were in this situation and you did feel for them, and especially for Leslie Oldham. I think that he did a really great job with this character of Victor and how he was in this situation trying to save his daughter. Now, there is at the end, and you guys can imagine this isn't a spoiler, but obviously there is the big confrontation that happens at the end. And they did do a few interesting things, and especially one thing that, and I could see in the audience when we were in the theater, a few people were kind of like, oh man, so there were some moments like that. And I think that's a great thing. So, anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Please don't give away any spoilers. We want to be respectful to those who have not seen the movie. And also, let's be respectful to each other. There are going to be people that will say, yeah, this movie wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything great. Did we need it? Of course we didn't. We don't need, there are not many sequels I can think of, guys, that we need, right? But there's a lot of sequels I can think of that I'm glad we got. So is this one that we need? Absolutely not. The original was good enough and it didn't need anything more. But I am glad we got The Exorcist 3. I'm just going to put that out there. Shout out to George C. Scott. So anyways, in the comment section, guys, let us know your thoughts. Did you like it? Did you not? And if you didn't like it, or if you did like it, let us know why. Is it just because David Gordon Green directed it and you got issues with him as a director? If so, that's your opinion. But I feel kind of bad because there are directors, every director has bad movies or movies that you just don't jive with. And for me, I've seen it happen, whether it's Steven Spielberg, who to me is one of the greatest directors of all time, John Carpenter, even the late, great Wes Craven. Every film isn't always going to hit with you, but that doesn't mean that everything they do in the rest of their career is absolute crap before you even see it or even give it a chance. So let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps us support the channel. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. And we will be talking spoilers for The Exorcist Believer coming up live and in videos and a lot more content concerning it and seeing what the fandom has to say about it. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.